2024 is almost over, so it's time to look back on my wines of the year, the good and the bad. It was a full-on year as I traveled through the wine regions of Europe, gave many masterclasses and produced a lot of videos for you guys. I tasted my way through thousands of wines last year and I had many highlights, but I don't just want to focus on the highest scoring wines, as many of them are really not available anymore. Instead, I want to look at the wines that really moved me, one way or another. What excites me most about wine is when I taste wines that I've never really heard of before, from regions that are completely unknown to me, or wine styles that I've heard of but never really discovered. And some of those wines are coming up now. So one of those styles was the 2021 Osmote Cabernet Franc from the Finger Lakes in New York State. This region really interests me and I'm hoping that I get to go there next year maybe. But this wine style just kind of showed to me, first of all, that Cabernet Franc is a great grape variety that can produce really beautiful, delicious wines, and that it does really well in the Finger Lakes, a place that many people in the wine world probably have never heard of. This region is a real cool climate, producing some very fresh and elegant wines, and I actually have high hopes for the Finger Lakes. And I think we'll hear more from New York State wines next year. Talking about cool climate, I was actually really impressed by the wines that I tasted from Scandinavia. Not all of them, but in particular of the Solaris from Denmark and the Kullabergs Vingard Immelen wine from Sweden. I didn't really know that the quality up there can be this high, but some of those wines were really delicious. Others were not so delicious. I did not find the empty bottles of those wines. Sometimes I have to throw out my glass bottles, otherwise I'd be in trouble here. But I'm going to put them all into the description and I'll also add a link to Wine Searcher whenever that's possible. The next wine is a wine from a well-known region, but I didn't really taste enough of those wines in recent years. So I didn't really know how good they can be, but the 2017 Suane Reserva from Rioja, a white Rioja, just blew me away. And I think the winemakers behind this project were actually blown away by the feedback they received. This wine was sold out pretty much everywhere in the world within a few days. And I'm glad to see that, not because I get anything in return, I'm not getting anything for that. But I'm happy that you guys follow my advice, and I'm also happy that people still drink good wine. The next wine certainly falls into the category a classic that I don't taste enough of, and it's the estate Argyros Santorini Cuvee Monsignori from the vintage 2018. So this is a wine from the Greek island Santorini. It's a classic, I think. I've been to that place, I've tasted the wines, but I don't try them enough at home. Even though they are just absolutely delicious, the history in that place is very special. And the way they farm those vineyards is also something that you don't see anywhere else in the world. It was also interesting to see that my video on Greek wine was one of the best performing videos of the year. There's certainly some interest in the wines of Greece, and I think they deserve it. I think those wines can be absolutely delicious. They have so many really exciting grape varieties that you don't find anywhere else in the world. And yeah, people should drink more Greek wine. I've loved sherry for a long time, but I had never visited the region. So I changed that at the very beginning of 2024. I went into the region, I visited some of the producers, and well, I just love sherry. It's an outstanding wine style. It's very different. Not everyone likes it, but if you like it, it's just so rewarding because it's so complex, interesting, and still fairly affordable. I really like this 30-year-old Amontillado from Barbadillo, a complex. Oh, you can still smell it. This nutty, walnutty kind of character, just delicious. The next wine is a wine that I've tasted for the first time close to 20 years ago, but I still haven't tasted enough bottles of this treasure. It's Chateau Musar from the vintage of 1998. It was gifted to me by Wojtek, one of you guys, one of my subscribers, and I just loved this wine. It's it's an example for how wine can be perfect, even though it's not perfect. It's imperfect. It was just kind of flawlessly imperfect. Chateau Musar is famous for having a little bit of bread, a little bit of volatile acidity, and this wine had all of that, but it still tasted absolutely delicious. And it also shows that some wine regions that people don't really have on their radar, like the Bekaa Valley from Lebanon, can produce outstanding wines if the right people farm the land and make the fermented grape juice. You know what I'm talking about. We don't know yet which wines I will taste next year, but in order to discover them, I will travel the world in 2025. And one of the travel companions that will be with me on those trips is the sponsor of this video, NordVPN. NordVPN is a tool that allows you to browse the internet protected from online threats, surveillance, and censorship. After tasting all day during those trips, I like to kick back and watch some of my favorite shows. Nord allows me to access content from all around the globe, bypass geo-restrictions, and enjoy fast speeds wherever I am. When I'm away, I frequently have to use public Wi-Fi at cafes, train stations, or airports. NordVPN's advanced security features ensure my protection from any threats lurking on unsecured networks. Under NordVPN's plans, all of my devices are covered with one account, so my smartphone, tablet, and laptop are all safe and my data is protected. Right now, NordVPN is offering a special deal to my viewers, so click on the link in the description to get a big discount and free month in order to surf safer today. Thank you NordVPN for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to the wines. I'm fortunate as I get to taste many outstanding wines, but this year I probably tasted more outstanding wines than usual, and one of the most outstanding wine tastings was opening a bottle of 2013 La Tache from the Domaine de la Romanee-Conti here and sharing that experience with you. That wine was just delicious, complex, and exciting. And I shared that bottle afterwards with one of my best friends. I actually poured this wine blind for him, and to be honest, he preferred another wine that was maybe 1% of the price of that bottle in that blind tasting. But when I revealed it, I mean, this is not a wine for blind tasting. I think you have to know what you're tasting in order to be able to fully appreciate it. Of course, this is also not necessarily worth the money. It's just extremely expensive. So you don't get a good price quality ratio here, but it's just, yeah, it's a special wine and this will stay up here for the rest of my life. I also tasted a bottle of 2014 Gran from Domaine de la Romanee-Conti right next to the vineyards of the Domaine de la Romanee-Conti, which was a pretty surreal experience. And later this year, I also tasted the 2017 La Tache next to the 2018 La Tache. So yeah, like I said, I'm blessed. Far less expensive, but also really exciting was the 2023 Monsignori Harlenberg Riesling Trocken GG from Schäfer-Fröhlich in the Nahe. This was the first time I tasted a Riesling like that, and I was just absolutely blown away by the wine. I really, really loved it. It's kind of a little bit funky, but also really complex and very elegant. And yeah, just an outstanding wine that I really loved. I mean, I know Riesling, but it's still fascinating to see how many facets Riesling really has. And this is an additional facet that I hadn't really seen before. It doesn't happen often that I give a wine 100 point, but the 2004 Vina Tondonia Gran Reserva from Rioja got 100 points. I think it's probably, was it the only wine this year that I handed 100 wines to? I think it was. To be honest, I probably should taste a few of those wines on this channel because I've tasted wines from Vina Tondonia many times here. It's probably one of the most overrepresented wineries on this channel, but the wines are just amazing. I think they're also still great in terms of price quality ratio. They're still fairly affordable if you can get them. And well, they're just delicious. And this was just, I mean, this is kind of what perfection is. It's not the biggest wine. It's not the boldest wine. It's the most complete wine. It's a wine where you don't see anything missing. And it was still so young. I mean, after 20 years, just it didn't feel like it was actually aged, really. I visited many great wineries this year, but one visit really stood out, and that was going to Vega Sicilia and meeting CEO Pablo Alvarez and just seeing this iconic place that has been making special wines for such a long time. One thing really stood out to me. They started making wine in Ribera del Duero before anyone else really believed in that region. As a matter of fact, they worked there for close to 100 years without anyone else really wanting to make wine there. And today they are one of the most highly regarded producers of wine in the entire world. Their wines are outstanding. I really loved the lineup, and yeah, it was just one of those places where you sense that they really do everything in order to make great wine. Another experience that really stood out to me, and I think it's an experience that everyone who's really into wine should have, is tasting the juice that is used to make Tokai Essentia. It is the syrup that runs out of the vat when Azu berries are collected. They just sit in those vats, and due to their own weight, they squeeze out a little bit of juice. And that is the sweetest juice that you can imagine. It's not necessarily something that I particularly enjoyed, but it's something that I really appreciated tasting because it just shows you one of the extremes of wine. I think in order to understand wine, you should know the extremes as well as everything that is in the middle. And this juice is certainly extreme. It is the essence of the grape, and it shows you how crazy wine people can be if they want to produce something really special. This year I wanted to taste more Syrahs, and I certainly did, and those were two of my favorites. I really loved the 2018 Jamais Côte Rôtie due to its just complex olive tapenade flavor that is also really Syrah. And this was one of my favorite discoveries from Tuscany, the Stefano Americi Syrah from 2020. Just a delicious wine that I really, really loved. And who would have thought that Italy is capable of producing some of the greatest Syrah in the world? When it comes to the worst wines that I've tasted, this is certainly a contender. The Weißwein Lieblich, the white wine off dry, from the Tetra Pak that I had in one of my discounter videos. Not worth it. Another one of the worst was the White Great Wall that I tasted in the Chinese wine tasting video. That said though, next year I want to make sure that I learn more about Chinese wine because I think there's something there. So I'm hopeful that there will be a better Chinese wine coming out of that country very soon. And maybe there is already a lot of great stuff. I'm going to go there and discover more. I also really enjoyed playing around with different formats this year, like my travel vlogs from different regions, tasting wine at 11,000 meters above sea level in Emirates first class, opening a bottle of DRC here in the cellar, and sharing my insights and perspective when it comes to alcohol with my audience and everyone who cares to listen. I want to continue on that path next year, visiting wine regions that I've never been to and tasting wines that I've never tasted and sharing that experience with you. This channel would be nothing without you guys, without your comments, without your thumbs up, without kind of running into you on the street or at a trade fair and talking about wine. In the words of the philosopher, the world is a beautiful place and life is short. That's all there is to say. So get what you can from the present, thoughtfully and justly, and stay thirsty.